Imagine, if you will, stepping into a room that feels off. The air hums with a low mechanical drone, and the only light comes from the flickering glow of a monitor screen. And there, perched on a stool, in front of a keyboard worn smooth, with use, sits a monkey. Not just any monkey, but one utterly engrossed in its task. Tiny fingers flying across the keys with a furious, almost desperate energy, as if it's late for the most important deadline of its life. You watch, transfixed. What could it possibly be doing? Winning some bizarre simian Street Fighter tournament? Trying to hack the global banana supply chain? Your mind races. But the most likely answer, the one that settles comfortably in your brain, is chaos. Pure, unadulterated gibberish. A random assault on the alphabet, yielding nothing but a digital stream of meaningless noise. But then you lean closer. You squint at the screen, your expectations firmly set on a jumbled mess of letters, and you see something that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. Clear as day, perfectly spaced, grammatically correct, and hauntingly familiar appears a single line of text. To be or not to be, that is the question. Your first reaction is denial. Must be a prank. Hidden wires, a program display, some elaborate setup designed to mess with anyone who walks in. You check the keyboard, poke around the computer. Nothing obvious. You tell yourself it's a glitch, a cosmic error, a momentary alignment of electrons that just happened to produce those iconic words. But what if? What if it wasn't? What if, against all conceivable odds, purely through blind, random chance, that little primate with the intense focus and the flying fingers had, in that specific moment, typed one of the most profound and celebrated lines in human history? Just because. This isn't science fiction, not really. It's the starting point for one of the most mind-bending, absurd, and strangely illuminating thought experiments ever conceived. The Infinite Monkey Theorem. And trust me, it gets much weirder, because the theorem doesn't stop at a single famous line. Oh no. Take that monkey, that keyboard, and crank the dial up to 11. Give it not just a few hours, or a few days, or even a few million years. Give it, or perhaps an infinite number of identical, tireless monkeys, an infinite amount of time, literally forever. A span of time so vast it dwarfs the age of the universe, the lifespan of stars, the crumbling of galaxies. And according to this bizarre, beautiful idea, if you give that infinite monkey infinite time, it wouldn't just type. To be or not to be, it would eventually type everything Shakespeare ever wrote. Word for word. Punctuation perfect. Every play, every sonnet, every single note he scribbled down. But that's just the beginning. With infinite time, exploring every possible combination of keystrokes, the monkeys wouldn't stop at Shakespeare. They would type every book that has ever been written, every poem ever composed, every song ever sung, every script ever filmed. And then, they would type everything that could ever be written. Think about that for a second. Hidden somewhere within that endless, chaotic stream of letters being generated by the tireless monkeys, there would be a perfect, identical copy of Hamlet. But there would also be a version of Hamlet where Ophelia is a sentient, philosophical, talking pineapple. A version where Romeo and Juliet meet on Mars and exchange sonnets written in emoji. A version where Macbeth's soliloquies are delivered entirely in the language of interpretive dance notation. And yes, a version where the entire play of Hamlet is just the word banana, repeated approximately 200,000 times. It's an idea that makes you laugh, scratch your head, and then stare off into the distance, wondering if you've truly grasped the implications. Can something as ordered and meaningful as Shakespeare, or a blueprint for a fusion reactor, or a perfect history of the next 1,000 years, truly emerge from pure, unadulterated chaos, given enough time? How likely is it for structure to arise from absolute randomness? And if this theorem holds true, What does it suggest about the fundamental nature of the universe itself? At this point, you might be thinking, okay, this is a fun concept, but is it actually possible? Like, in the real world? Or is this just another one of those technically correct, mathematically sound but completely impractical ideas? Like trying to count the grains of sand on every beach on Earth. And that, my friends, is where the rabbit hole gets truly interesting. Because mathematically, the answer is a resounding, undeniable yes. Given infinite time and infinite monkeys, it could and would happen. But practically? Oh, the practicality is where this beautiful idea slams headfirst into the brutal reality of numbers so vast they make the size of the universe seem quaint. The odds of this happening in any time frame we can comprehend are so astronomically, laughably low that yes, the entire universe could experience multiple cycles of birth and heat death before you'd see so much as a single Shakespearean sonnet pop up on screen. But before we get swallowed whole by the terrifying scale of those numbers, let's break down exactly what this theorem is claiming, why it matters, and why it sounds so utterly absurd on the surface. A monkey writing Hamlet. Come on, it's a punchline, a cartoon image, a creature of instinct and impulse, not existential angst and iambic pentameter. But mathematically, it doesn't need intent. It just needs to hit keys. And the key word, the absolute foundation of this theorem, is infinite, because once you introduce infinity into an experiment, every possible outcome, no matter how improbable in the short term, becomes not just possible, but guaranteed to happen. Given infinite time, that monkey isn't just likely to type Shakespeare. It must. It's not that the monkey suddenly develops a passion for Elizabethan tragedy or starts pondering the nature of existence. It's not sitting there, chin on hand, or perhaps a keyboard key, thinking, to be or not to be. Yes, that is the question I shall type now. No, it's just a monkey, randomly mashing keys, producing an endless stream of utter, glorious chaos. To truly grasp why this is technically true, despite sounding insane, let's think about randomness in a simpler context. Take a fair coin. If you flip it 10 times, you'll probably get a mix of heads and tails. It's unlikely, though not impossible, to get 10 heads in a row. But if you were to flip that coin an infinite number of times, at some point, you will get 100 heads in a row. You will get 1,000,000 heads in a row. You will get any specific finite sequence of heads and tails you can imagine. It's rare in the short term, but given infinite chances, every combination must eventually appear. The same unbreakable logic applies to our typing primate. A monkey randomly typing is overwhelmingly, monumentally likely to produce nothing but gibberish. Page after page, year after year, century after century, just endless, meaningless noise. But in an infinite timeline exploring every single possible combination of characters, it will eventually, by pure, dumb luck, stumble upon meaningful words, coherent sentences, entire chapters, and yes, eventually, entire books, just by pure chance. And here's where the weirdness gets dialed up even further. The theorem doesn't just say the monkey will type Hamlet once. It says the monkey will type every possible version of Hamlet. Think about that infinite stream of text. Somewhere in there is a perfect word-for-word replica of the Hamlet you read in school. But right next to it, in this conceptual infinite stream, is a version where every single word is misspelled in a unique way. A version where every character is replaced by a different type of vegetable. Imagine, carrot, I am your father. A version that starts off perfectly as Hamlet but, halfway through Act 3, inexplicably transforms into a 900-page, meticulously researched history of competitive hot dog eating. A version written in grammatically perfect English, using real words but making absolutely zero logical sense. A version that is simply the letter A repeated forever. It doesn't stop with just variations of existing works. The theorem predicts that somewhere in this infinite, churning mess of text, the monkeys will type every book that has ever been conceived of, every book that hasn't been conceived of yet, every single possible arrangement of letters, numbers, and symbols that could ever exist on a page. This means that right now, in some hypothetical, unfathomably vast expanse where this experiment is running, there exists a perfect word-for-word transcript of your entire life story, from birth to death, including moments you've forgotten and parts that haven't even happened yet. There's a book with your exact name on the cover that predicts every single word you will ever utter, and another book describing an alternate timeline where, say, you became an astronaut instead of watching this video. This is where the Infinite Monkey Theorem transcends being a quirky probability puzzle and starts to feel like something that challenges your understanding of reality itself. If infinite randomness, given enough room to explore, can produce something as ordered, complex, and meaningful as Shakespeare, or your life story, or the blueprint for a universe, what does that say about the universe we inhabit? Could everything we see around us, the intricate laws of physics, the sprawling tapestry of history, the baffling emergence of consciousness, just be one spectacularly lucky, meaningful arrangement that happened to emerge from an underlying foundation of pure randomness? Now, before you descend into an existential crisis and start questioning the very fabric of your existence, let's yank ourselves back to Earth, or at least to the cold, hard ground of mathematical probability. Because as mind-blowing as this idea is in theory, there is a catch. A very, very big catch. Just because something is possible in an infinite time frame doesn't mean it's even remotely probable or practical in a finite one, like, say, the lifespan of the universe. In theory, yes, a monkey could type Shakespeare. But what are the actual concrete chances of this happening in a real-world scenario? Even a scenario with a really, really, really long amount of time? That's where things stop being merely interesting and start becoming utterly, comically absurd. Because the numbers behind this are so unbelievably gargantuan that we might as well be talking about something that will never happen. Not just within your lifetime, or my lifetime, but within the entire known lifespan of the cosmos itself. Let's dive into the terrifying beauty of the maths. How long, realistically, would it take for a monkey, typing randomly, to produce even a single, correct Shakespearean sentence? Let's find out. Probability. How likely is never? All right, time to confront the numbers head-on. While the infinite monkey theorem is a captivating theoretical concept, once you actually calculate the odds of it happening in any sort of practical time frame, things get, well, let's just say the word improbable feels like a ridiculous understatement. Let's start simple. Imagine a single monkey facing a standard keyboard. Not one with a bazillion keys, just a typical one, say with around 50 keys available. Letters, numbers, space, punctuation, maybe shift. Every time our simian friend strikes a key, it has roughly a 1 in 50 chance of hitting the right one for any given sequence we're looking for. Doesn't sound too bad, right? 1 in 50. You could probably guess the right key within a minute or two. Now, let's ask our monkey to type the first word of Hamlet's famous line, 2. The letter T needs to be typed correctly. That's a 1 in 50 chance. Then the letter O needs to be typed correctly. That's also a 1 in 50 chance. For the monkey to type 2 in that exact order, the probability is 150 multiplied by 150, which is 1 in 2,500. Not great odds for something so simple, but still, you could imagine it happening fairly quickly if the monkey kept hitting keys. Okay, let's add the next word, B, the space key, 1 in 50. The letter B, 1 in 50. The letter E, 1 in 50. To type the phrase to be correctly, in sequence, our monkey's odds are now 150, 150, 150, 150, 150. That's 1 in 50 to the power of 5, which is 1 in 312,500. It's getting harder. The chance of typing just "to be" is about 1 in 300,000. For perspective, the odds of getting struck by lightning in a given year are roughly 1 in 1.2 million. So, typing "to be" is slightly more likely than being hit by lightning this year, but still not something you'd bet on. Let's try the full phrase. To be or not to be. That's 18 characters long, including spaces and commas. Let's simplify and say they're all on our 50-key keyboard. The probability of typing that exact 18-character sequence correctly on the first try is 1 in 50 multiplied by itself 18 times. That's 1 in 50 to the power of 18. How big is that number? Well, 50/18 is roughly 3.8 x 10^30. That's 3.8 followed by 30 zeros. Okay, that's a big number. How big? Let's try to visualize it. The number of seconds that have passed since the Big Bang is about 4.3 x 10^17. So 50/18 is roughly a million billion times larger than the age of the universe in seconds. The odds of typing "to be or not to be" are worse than winning the biggest state lottery every single week for about 60,000 years straight. Still think it's remotely likely? We're just getting warmed up. Now let's move to the full first line of Hamlet's soliloquy. To be or not to be, that is the question. That entire sequence is 39 characters long, including spaces and punctuation. The probability of a monkey typing that exact 39-character string in that order on the first try is 1 in 50 to the power of 39. Take a deep breath. How big is 50^39? It's approximately 1.4 x 10^66. That's 1.4 followed by 66 zeros. To put that into some kind of perspective, the estimated number of atoms in the entire observable universe is somewhere around 10^80. So, the number of possible 39-character sequences is only slightly less than the total number of atoms in everything. We can see. Imagine trying to find one specific atom out of all the atoms in the universe. That's incredibly unlikely. Now multiply that unlikelihood by something approaching the same scale. That's your chance of a monkey typing the first line of Hamlet. It's so small, it makes the chance of picking a specific grain of sand out of all. The grains of sand on all the beaches on Earth simultaneously seem like a dead certainty. Let's scale up again. What about the entire text of Hamlet? A quick check shows it's roughly 130,000 characters long. This includes letters, spaces, punctuation, etc., simplifying for the keyboard size. The probability of a monkey randomly typing the entire play of Hamlet, word for word, punctuation for punctuation, on the first try is 1 in 50 to the power of 130,000. That number is beyond comprehension. It's a 1 followed by over 220,000 zeros. Log base 10 of $130,000 is roughly $130,000. Log 10, 50, 130,000, 1.7, 21,000. Trying to write out that number would require more paper than exists on Earth. It would take up more space than the known universe could contain, written in microscopic print. At this point, you have a better chance of shuffling a deck of cards, having it land in perfect sequential order. Doing that successfully every single time you try, for a number of times that makes the age of the universe seem like a blink. You have better odds of winning the lottery 100 times in a row than a monkey typing just one correct Shakespearean paragraph. The sun will burn out, expand into a red giant, swallow the earth, shrink into a white dwarf, and fade into cold nothingness. Entire galaxies will collide and merge. New solar systems will form and disappear, and statistically the universe will die of heat death, a state of maximum entropy where no energy can be converted into work, and nothing can happen anymore. Long, long, long before a single, randomly typing monkey produces one correct page of Hamlet. So while the Infinite Monkey Theorem is technically, mathematically true in the realm of infinity, in any practical, finite sense, even one as vast as the universe's lifespan, it is functionally impossible. It's a probability so close to zero that the difference is academic. Even with billions of years and billions of monkeys, you just end up with an overwhelming, incomprehensible ocean of random gibberish. And maybe, if you watch for a truly, utterly insane amount of time, a lucky phrase might pop up once every few trillion years. And this crushing numerical reality raises a crucial point. Randomness alone, no matter how vast or how long it operates, doesn't inherently create meaning. It's not enough to just generate infinite text. The text has to be recognizable, interpretable. Someone or something has to be there to recognize when something meaningful appears within the noise. This is where things start to get deeply philosophical. If randomness technically can produce structure and meaning, but the chances are so infinitesimally small that it essentially never happens in a finite system, what does that say about reality? Is the universe fundamentally a random mess, with pockets of fleeting order? Or is there something else, something shaping the patterns we see, guiding the chaos toward structure? The big picture. Can randomness forge meaning? We've stared into the abyss of probability, and the numbers are clear. A randomly typing monkey generating Shakespeare in any practical time frame is a non-starter. The Infinite Monkey Theorem, in its raw, probabilistic form, feels like a cosmic joke when confronted with reality. And yet, this seemingly absurd idea taps into questions far larger than primates and keyboards. It forces us to confront a fundamental riddle. Can randomness, on its own, truly create meaning? Or is meaning something that requires intent, guidance, recognition, or selection? Because let's face it, randomness by itself is just chaos. If you could somehow manifest that infinite, randomly generated jumble of letters, numbers, and symbols from the theoretical monkey, you'd have a mess of unparalleled proportions. But as the theorem states, buried deep within that mess, you would indeed find the complete works of Shakespeare. You'd find the perfect blueprint for a working time machine. You'd find a perfectly accurate word-for-word prediction of every significant event that will ever happen on Earth. You'd find cures for diseases we haven't even named yet. But here's the catch. Those meaningful sequences would be so utterly, unbelievably rare, so completely drowned out by the surrounding noise and nonsense, that finding them would be less likely than the monkey typing Hamlet in the first place. They would be like single, perfect diamonds hidden within a mountain, range made entirely of static. One of the most famous analogies often brought up alongside the Infinite Monkey Theorem is biological evolution. Life, as we know it, with its staggering complexity and apparent design, emerged from processes that, at their core, involve randomness. Random mutations occur in DNA sequences when cells divide. These are, essentially, random typos in the genetic code. Given billions of years, these random changes, coupled with environmental pressures, have led to everything from single-celled organisms to redwood trees to, well, to us. Some people point to this and say, aha, see? Randomness can create meaning and complexity. Evolution is just the ultimate Infinite Monkey Theorem. In this view, life is like the monkey typing random letters, mutations, except the keyboard is DNA, and instead of infinite time, it had a few billion years to work with. But here's the crucial, fundamental difference. Evolution isn't purely random. Yes, the initial mutations, the raw material of change, happen randomly. But the process that shapes those mutations, that determines which ones survive and spread, natural selection, is anything but random. Natural selection is a relentless, non-random filter. It constantly tests these random changes against the environment. Bad mutations that hinder survival or reproduction are filtered out, disappearing from the gene pool. Good mutations, those that offer an advantage, are preserved and passed on. It's not like the monkey is just typing random junk and accidentally getting Shakespeare. It's more like the monkey types, and a stern editor immediately deletes everything that isn't a correct letter in the sequence, forcing the monkey to keep trying until it gets it right, building the correct text piece by piece. This is why pure randomness, like a monkey hammering a keyboard with no feedback or selection process, doesn't create usable meaning. Without some form of filtering, selecting, or guiding principle, you're left with an ocean of nonsense, with tiny, isolated islands of coherence that are practically impossible to find or recognize. Let's expand this idea even further. The infinite monkey theorem doesn't just connect to biology. It ties into some of the most profound questions in cosmology and philosophy. Take, for instance, interpretations of the multiverse theory. Some versions suggest that if there are indeed infinite universes, each arising from different initial conditions or with different physical constants, then every possible configuration of a universe must exist somewhere. This means that in some universe out there, gravity might work backwards, or the speed of light is different, or time flows in reverse. And yes, according to this logic, in some universe, Shakespeare was literally a monkey who accidentally typed his plays. And in another universe, you are the one who wrote Hamlet. This sounds utterly insane, right? But the underlying logic is eerily similar to the Infinite Monkey Theorem. If you have infinite chances, infinite possibilities, then every finite outcome, no matter how improbable, has to exist somewhere within that vast landscape of possibilities. But that also forces us to confront a strange, unsettling thought. Is our own universe just one of those incredibly lucky, meaningful arrangements? A rare pocket of order and complexity hidden within an infinite sea of random, chaotic universes? Could the specific laws of physics that govern our reality, the strength of gravity, the mass of an electron, the values of fundamental constants, just be a random roll of the cosmic dice that just happen to produce conditions stable enough for stars, planets, and life to emerge? This is where the theorem goes from being a quirky thought experiment to something that truly makes you question the fundamental nature of existence. If infinite randomness can produce meaning, structure, and complexity, then is our universe just a product of chance? Or is there something else at play? Furthermore, even if a monkey or the universe did type out all of Shakespeare's works or the blueprint for everything, who would notice? If no one is there to read the play, understand the blueprint, or recognize the pattern, does it even matter that it exists? This is where the Infinite Monkey Theorem stops being purely about probability and becomes deeply philosophical about the nature of knowledge, meaning, and consciousness. Meaning isn't just about something existing. It's about someone being there, to recognize it, interpret it, and assign value to it. Think about that infinite output from the monkeys again. Yes, it contains Shakespeare, but it also contains every possible book of gibberish. It contains books that look like nonsense, but secretly hold the keys to interstellar travel. Books that perfectly describe future civilizations. Books that contain the answers to every scientific mystery. But if these books are lost in an infinite, unsearchable library of chaos, do they actually mean anything in a practical sense? It's much like how we approach science and discovery. The fundamental laws of the universe, the secrets of nature, the potential for new technologies, they exist, in a sense, waiting to be discovered. They are out there, hidden within the structure of reality. But until a human mind, through observation, experimentation, interpretation, and hard work, finds that information, deciphers it, and makes sense of it, it's just noise. It's like one of the monkey's perfect books, lost in the infinite pile. So, in a profound way, the Infinite Monkey Theorem isn't just a quirky mathematical curiosity. It's a statement about the nature of knowledge and intelligence itself. It suggests that while randomness can generate anything, including meaningful things, those things only become meaningful when there is a system, an intelligence, a consciousness, capable of recognizing, filtering, selecting, and making sense of the inherent patterns. So, can randomness truly create meaning? The answer, nuanced and complex, seems to be yes, it can produce structures that we recognize as meaningful, but not in a way that is useful or even detectable without some external force, like intelligence or natural selection, to find, extract, and interpret that meaning from the overwhelming chaos. All by itself without a reader or a filter, infinite randomness is just infinite noise. That's the real, practical takeaway from this mind-bending theorem. It's not just a funny idea about primates and keyboards, it's a lens through which to view the universe, creativity, and the very role of consciousness. It asks, in a universe potentially built on randomness, does meaning actually matter if no one is there to perceive it? And that's a question that ripples out, touching everything from philosophy to artificial intelligence to our place in the cosmos. But before we get lost entirely in the cosmic existential soup, let's anchor ourselves back to something a little more concrete. Because believe it or not, someone actually tried to run this experiment in the real world with actual monkeys. And the results? Well, they were exactly what you might expect when messy reality meets abstract theory. The time we actually gave monkeys a keyboard. Spoiler, there was poop. For such a famous thought experiment, it's perhaps inevitable that someone would try to make it a reality. And they did. Back in 2003, a group of researchers at the University of Plymouth in the UK, possibly fueled by a healthy dose of scientific curiosity and maybe a touch of mischief, decided to put the Infinite Monkey Theorem to a decidedly finite test. They set up a computer and keyboard inside an enclosure at the Paynton Zoo, home to 6 Sulawesi-crested macaques, a species known for being quite active. They gave the monkeys free access to the keyboard and waited, recorders running, to see what glorious, accidental literature might emerge. The scientific hope was modest, of course. Nobody seriously expected Hamlet to appear. Maybe a few recognizable words? Perhaps some simple sentences. At least something vaguely structured beyond random key presses. The reality, however, was far more simian. The monkeys, presented with this strange, new object, did what monkeys do. They explored it, they poked it, they tasted it. And yes, they hit the keys. Randomly, aggressively. But not with the endless, focused intent of the theoretical monkey. The results were swift and, frankly, hilarious from a human perspective, though probably disappointing for the researchers. Over the course of the experiment, the 6 macaques collectively produced exactly 5 pages of text. 5 pages. Not a single recognizable word was formed. It was pure, unadulterated gibberish. But the real highlights came when the monkeys decided they were done with the intellectual pursuits. They didn't just stop typing. They actively dismantled the experiment. They spent a good chunk of time trying to eat the keyboard. Then, they apparently used a rock to smash it. And in a final, definitive statement on the inherent difference between abstract theorems and messy reality, one of the monkeys defecated on the keyboard. That's right. Before they could type to be or not to be, they literally crapped on the experiment. The final report from the researchers, delivered with perhaps a hint of dry British humor, stated simply, "The random keystrokes hypothesis lacks empirical support," which is a polite scientific way of saying, yeah, real monkeys don't work like the ones in the thought experiment. The Plymouth Monkey experiment, while a failure in terms of producing literature, was a fantastic success in highlighting a critical flaw in the way we often think about abstract concepts like infinite time and randomness. The theoretical monkey is a perfect, tireless, unchanging random number generator. A real monkey is, well, it's a real monkey. It gets bored, it gets hungry, it gets destructive, it gets curious about whether a keyboard is edible or a suitable target for fecals. Matter, it walks away. since actual monkeys proved unreliable and messy. Researchers have also attempted to test the theorem using the tireless efficiency of computers. A computer program can perfectly simulate a monkey hitting keys randomly, never getting bored, never taking a break, and thankfully, never needing a cleanup crew. One notable attempt happened around 2011. Programmers set up a virtual simulation that churned out random characters at an incredibly high rate, mimicking trillions of keystrokes per second. Their goal? To see if, with immense computational power, they could generate a snippet of Shakespeare through pure chance. The results? After generating trillions upon trillions of random characters, far exceeding what a real monkey could do in a million lifetimes, the program did manage to produce one extremely small win. It successfully typed a 24-character sequence that appeared somewhere in Shakespeare's Henry IV, Part 2, a 24-character snippet, out of a play with 130,000 characters, after trillions of attempts. This virtual experiment, while more successful than the real monkey one, still underscores the absolutely staggering scale of the numbers involved. Even with computational power vastly exceeding anything a physical monkey could muster, generating anything more than tiny, isolated fragments of meaning through pure randomness requires a time frame that still dwarfs the age of the universe. Could a computer eventually generate the full works of Shakespeare through pure random typing? Yes, technically, but it would still take an unimaginable, practically infinite amount of time. These experiments, both real and simulated, aren't just amusing footnotes. They hammer home the point. While the Infinite Monkey Theorem is sound in the abstract realm of mathematics, in reality it's completely impractical. Even with infinite time conceptually available, the sheer volume of randomness makes the appearance of meaningful patterns through pure chance vanishingly rare to the point of irrelevance in any finite reality. And yet, we see patterns, structure, and meaning all around us. We see galaxies forming intricate spirals, complex life emerging from simple beginnings, and human minds creating breathtaking works of art and profound scientific theories. If randomness alone isn't enough, and infinite, time is functionally useless in reality, how do we get from chaos to Hamlet? How do we get from random atomic vibrations to conscious thought? This brings us to perhaps the most relevant connection of the Infinite Monkey Theorem for our current world: what it means for artificial intelligence and the future of creativity. What this means for AI and the future of creativity. So we've established that waiting for a monkey, real or simulated, to randomly type Shakespeare is an exercise in futility on a cosmic scale. Randomness alone, without a guiding hand or a filtering process, doesn't reliably produce useful meaning in any practical time frame. The real world isn't infinite, and neither is our patience. But here's where the idea gets a modern twist. What if we don't rely on pure, unadulterated randomness? What if we could guide it? What if we could build a system that doesn't just randomly hit keys, but learns which keys, in which sequence, tend to produce patterns we recognize as meaningful? And that, my friends, is essentially what artificial intelligence, particularly large language models, LLMs, like the one I am, is doing. Is AI just a smarter, faster, infinite monkey? At first glance, you might think so. Modern AI models don't think or feel or have creativity in the human sense, or at least not in a way we currently understand. They operate based on complex algorithms and vast amounts of data. When you ask an AI to write a paragraph, it's not having a sudden spark of genius. It's performing an incredibly sophisticated form of pattern matching and prediction. Based on the billions or trillions of words it has been trained on, it calculates the statistically most likely next word, then the next, then the next, given the context you've provided and the text it's already generated. Sounds a little like randomness, doesn't it? Predicting the most probable next token? But there's a fundamental universe-sized difference between an AI writing and the Infinite Monkey Theorem. The AI isn't typing randomly. It's making structured, informed predictions based on the immense patterns it has learned from existing human text. It's not just hoping to stumble upon a meaningful sequence. It has been trained to recognize and reproduce the structure of meaning that humans have already created. Think of it this way. The infinite monkey is given a keyboard and infinite time. The AI is given a keyboard, a finite but massive amount of time, and access to the entire Library of Congress, and the Internet, and code repositories, etc. The AI is like a monkey that spent centuries reading every book, memorizing how words, sentences, paragraphs, and entire stories are constructed. It learned the probabilities not of random key presses, but of which words follow which words, which phrases work, in which contexts, which structures make sense. So, AI isn't a monkey blindly hitting keys. It's a monkey that has gone to the most extensive writing school imaginable, processed everything ever written, and is now applying incredibly complex statistical knowledge to generate text that looks and feels like human writing. It's like the monkey that gets instant feedback on every character it types, quickly learning which sequences are correct, i.e., statistically probable based on its training data, and which are wrong, statistically improbable. This is a massive leap from pure, undirected probability. Instead of waiting for chance to assemble meaning over eons, AI actively seeks and reproduces existing patterns of meaning in seconds. Let's push this idea. Suppose you trained an incredibly powerful AI model without ever showing it. Shakespeare's plays directly. Could it still generate text that sounds Shakespearean? In theory, yes. If its training data included vast amounts of other Elizabethan literature, poetry, and even just general English text from that era, the AI would learn the patterns of that language, the vocabulary, the sentence structures, the poetic meters, like iambic pentameter, the common phrases, the style, given a prompt like, write a soliloquy about indecision in the style of a 17th century playwright. It could, based only on the learned patterns, generate something that strongly resembles Shakespeare, even if it has never seen to be or not to be. This echoes the core idea of the Infinite Monkey Theorem. That structure can emerge from exploring combinations. But AI dramatically accelerates the process by applying learned patterns and probabilities instead of relying solely on brute force randomness. It's not waiting for accidental brilliance, it's synthesizing existing brilliance. Now comes the really interesting and perhaps unsettling philosophical question. If an AI can generate text that is indistinguishable from human writing, or even create something new that we find beautiful or insightful, is it truly creative? Or is it just an advanced, incredibly optimized version of the Infinite Monkey Theorem, combining existing pieces in statistically probable ways? Currently, most experts would say AI isn't truly creative in the way humans are. It doesn't have consciousness, intent, personal experience, or subjective understanding guiding its output. It's a sophisticated pattern-matching engine. But here's the counterthought. Is human creativity all that different? Think about how you write or create something new. Are you pulling ideas purely from a void? Or are you drawing upon everything you've ever read, seen, heard, and experienced? Your brain is constantly processing information, recognizing patterns, making connections, and then filtering and selecting combinations that resonate. When a writer crafts a sentence, they aren't randomly generating letters. They're drawing on a lifetime of linguistic experience, predicting which words will best convey their intended meaning. They are, in a sense, running a highly optimized biological version of pattern recognition and prediction, selecting the correct sequences from the infinite possibilities of language based on learned rules and desired outcomes. Perhaps human creativity is just an incredibly advanced, complex form of structured randomness, a biological system that takes the random inputs of the world and our own internal fluctuations, recognizes meaningful patterns, and then recombines them in novel ways, guided by intention and experience. If AI continues to improve, learning ever more subtle patterns and combinations, it might reach a point where its generated works are not only indistinguishable from human writing, but also evoke genuine emotional and intellectual responses in us. But will those works possess true meaning? Or will they remain highly sophisticated stochastic assemblies? This ties directly back to the core insight of the Infinite Monkey Theorem. Meaning doesn't exist in isolation. It exists when it is recognized and interpreted by an observer. If an AI generates a poem, does the meaning reside solely in the arrangement of words, or in the human reader who finds beauty or truth in them? If no one ever reads the AI's output, does it have meaning? Maybe it doesn't matter who or what creates the words. What matters is whether they resonate with an audience, whether they connect, whether they are recognized as meaningful. And if that's the case, then AI might not just be the next technological step. It might be a powerful demonstration that intelligence, creativity, and meaning itself are deeply intertwined with the ability to find, create, and recognize patterns within potential randomness. But let's take one final step back. After traversing the landscapes of probability, philosophy, chaos, order, evolution, and artificial intelligence, the Infinite Monkey Theorem still leaves us with a profound, lingering question. Chaos, order, and us. The ultimate question. We started with a whimsical image, a monkey typing Shakespeare, and journeyed through the staggering scale of mathematical probability, the philosophical depths of randomness and meaning, the biological dance of evolution, the cosmic lottery of the multiverse, and the cutting edge of artificial intelligence. The Infinite Monkey Theorem, initially sounding like a joke, has served as a surprising guide to some of the biggest questions about existence. If infinite randomness can, theoretically, create anything, including perfect order and profound meaning, and if the universe itself seems to be governed by both random processes, quantum fluctuations, chaotic systems, and ordering principles, gravity forming stars, self-organization forming complex structures, then where do we fit in? Are we, with our consciousness, our thoughts, our creations, our entire history, just one of those incredibly lucky, fantastically improbable arrangements of particles that happen to emerge from the cosmic randomness? Is everything we value and understand, science, art, love, consciousness, just a fleeting, ordered pattern in an otherwise indifferent, chaotic universe? Like a single perfect sentence in the monkey's endless stream of gibberish, or is there something deeper at work? Some underlying principle, a force, a structure woven into the fabric of reality itself, that favors the emergence of order from chaos? A cosmic version of natural selection, perhaps, that filters the random possibilities and guides the universe toward complexity and meaning? The Infinite Monkey Theorem, in its purest form, suggests that order must eventually arise from pure chance given infinite room. But the practical reality is that in any finite system, that pure chance is overwhelmingly likely to produce only noise. Yet our universe, which appears to be finite in age and perhaps extent, is brimming with order. Galaxies, solar systems, life, consciousness. These aren't random jumbles. They are intricate, highly structured patterns. Maybe the laws of physics themselves act as the selection process. Maybe only universes with certain fundamental constants can last long enough, cool down enough, or develop enough complexity for conscious observers like us to emerge and ponder their existence. We are here because the universe can produce us, and perhaps only the universes that can produce observers are the ones we are around to observe. A kind of cosmic self-selection. Or maybe, just maybe, there is something more. Something beyond probability and physics alone that guides the journey from the Big Bang's initial chaos to the universe we inhabit today. A debate as old as humanity itself. Is the universe random or designed? The Infinite Monkey Theorem doesn't give us the definitive answer, but it provides a powerful framework for asking the question. It shows us the staggering power of possibility hidden within randomness, but also the essential role of filtering, selection, and recognition in turning that potential into actual, discernible meaning. And that brings us back to us. Whether we view ourselves as the improbable, lucky product of cosmic randomness, or as part of a universe with a deeper, inherent drive toward order and meaning, one thing illuminated by this whole strange journey is clear. Meaning, in the end, is something that requires a perceiver. It exists because we are here to recognize it, to interpret it, to value it, and crucially, to create it ourselves. So, could a monkey type Shakespeare? Mathematically, yes. Practically, no. Does randomness create meaning? Yes, potentially, but it's buried deep in noise unless filtered. What does that say about us? Maybe that our ability to find and create meaning in a vast, potentially chaotic universe is one of the most extraordinary things about our existence. This whole exploration has been a reminder to me, and I hope to you, that the most profound ideas can sometimes hide in the most absurd places, like behind a monkey at a keyboard. It teaches us about the nature of probability, the difference between possibility and practicality, and the beautiful, fragile way that order and meaning emerge in our universe, often with the help of processes that select, filter, and build upon potential. So what can we take away from this for our own lives? Don't wait for infinite randomness to deliver your personal Hamlet. Don't just hope for random luck to bring you success or meaning. Instead, focus on the principles that do work in the finite reality we inhabit. Applying focused effort, unlike the random monkey, learning from patterns, like the AI trains, filtering the noise, like natural selection, and actively seeking out and creating meaning in the world around you. Your thoughts, your actions, your connections with others, these are not random keystrokes lost in infinity. They are the specific, chosen sequences that form the unique and meaningful narrative of your life. So, as you go about your day, perhaps think of the monkey, the keyboard, and the infinite possibilities. Remember that even in chaos, patterns can emerge. And remember that the meaning of those patterns often depends on you, the observer, the interpreter, the creator. What patterns are you seeing today? What meaning are you creating? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I hope this journey into the weird world of the Infinite Monkey Theorem has been as fascinating for you as it is for me. May your days be filled with more order than chaos, and may you find meaning in the most unexpected places. Stay curious, stay thoughtful, and stay healthy. If you enjoyed this exploration and want to dive down more rabbit holes with me, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It helps the channel immensely and means you won't miss out on the next wild idea we explore together. Thank you for watching. See you next time.